So I wanted to start by sharing an image with you. I'll find the screen share now for the people. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Try that again. Okay, so this is probably not what you'd expect about Vairocana, but this for me was my first image. See if I can make it a bit bigger. It's actually a picture from the Hubble telescope of something called a quasar. So a quasar is formed from when two galaxies collide. Each galaxy has a black hole at its center, and they form what's called a supermassive black hole, which sucks in all the debris. But out of it, all the friction of everything going into the black hole produces this amazingly brilliant light. So quasars are the brightest things that you will see. They're the brightest thing in the known universe, the most luminous, and it's also radiating out an enormous amount of power. So it's a very, very bright, very, very powerful object. And for me, that radiance, it just communicates something about Vairocana, really, that he's this sort of brilliant white light. He's the illuminator, and his light just spreads out across space in all directions. So I wanted to just share that image before we start, to just give you a sense of light illumination and really how Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can appear to us. They are the archetypal Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are beings of light, and they're on the transcendental plane rather than on the sort of the world of form in which we live. So I thought that would this is just really just to give you a sense of that they're these beings of light, and they emerge often. We visualize them, maybe not literally, I'm not a literal visualizer, but coming out of the blue sky. So I'll be saying a bit more about that later. I'm just going to stop sharing for now. And we're just going to have a short sit now. So it won't be for particularly long. If you just want to make yourselves comfortable. So just making sure you feel supported in your posture. Closing or lowering your eyes. Allowing the body to be supported by whatever you're sitting or lying on. So just giving up your weight, allowing it to be supported. Aware of the points of contact of the body with what you're sitting on, with the floor. Contact of the hands with whatever they're resting on, or perhaps with each other. More subtle points of contact. Clothing on skin. Perhaps a draft. Anything else. Allowing the awareness to inhabit the body. The body moving with the breath. I'm just going to read a few lines of a poem. If you want to extend the light of the Dharma, let it first illumine your own heart. If you want to extend the light of the Dharma, let it first illumine your own heart. So just bring to mind a teaching, or perhaps a few lines from a sutra or text, something that really resonates for you. Allowing the words to turn over in your mind. Noticing your response. Imagine holding those words or the text in your heart, touching your heart, holding them like a precious jewel. Noticing the heart's response. Heart and mind together. Now bring to mind a good friend and imagine sharing this teaching or text with them. Both from a place of understanding and including your heart's response. Sharing this precious Dharma with them. Noticing their response. And bringing to mind others that you could share with. And your friend also sharing with others. Creating a network of sharing. Illuminating the Dharma for others. And them responding. Sharing back with you. Shining a light for one another. Now, imaginatively, just allowing that sharing to go off on its own, like a balloon in the wind, taking the Dharma wherever it will, touching others. Now, just sitting for a minute or two, just to absorb So I'd like to invite you during the week to share with a friend. Because one of the messages of Vairocana really is about turning the wheel of Dharma, shining the light of the Dharma, both for us, but for us then to pass that on to others. So Vairocana is known as the illuminator, and like Shakyamuni, he radiates the light of the Dharma. So we could say that Shakyamuni, our Buddha, does that within our time and space. And Vairocana, as an archetypal Buddha, is doing that beyond time and space, we might say. So he's timeless and boundless. So he illuminates, I'll say that again. He illuminates ignorance. That's the poison. He illuminates ignorance so that we can see what's there. And ignorance is really the base poison. Out of ignorance, greed and hatred arise on the basis of that. So what he's doing is shining a light for us so that we can see what's underpinning greed, hatred, and delusion. And his wisdom is called the Dharma Dhatu, which is known as the realm or the sphere of truth. So he lights the path for us and he illuminates the way, he illuminates the darkness, he illuminates our ignorance. He's there in what we might call sparks of insight or light bulb moments, those moments that we all have. When we see things differently, we suddenly get something. Those moments, it's like, oh, he's really helping us to see something, to shine the light upon it. And perhaps sometimes we even feel we're transported. So we're transported beyond this sort of the realm that we're in now, the sort of everyday, and we feel we're transported somewhere else, something that is filled with light and illumination. Perhaps we also feel filled with illumination. Sometimes you might have had that experience where it's as though something is in you that isn't you, or it's flowing through you, or it's lighting you up, but you wouldn't say it's part of me, what I think of as myself. And in those moments, I think we can think of that as Vairocana. It's Vairocana being with us and helping us to see, to experience a bit more clearly how things really are. So I knew very little about Vairocana. In the team meeting, someone was saying, oh, we don't hear much about Vairocana. And I think that's true. I had been aware of something called the Gandavyuha Sutra quite early on, which is a story of a youth called Sudana who wants to go on the Bodhisattva path. He wants to learn how to enlighten other beings. And towards the end of this sutra, Maitreya, he sort of goes along asking all sorts of people. He starts off with human teachers, and then each person refers him to someone else and says, you ought to go and talk to such and such a teacher. And then, you know, he gets into the realm of the gods and the goddesses. And eventually he starts to meet some of the bodhisattvas, and eventually he meets Maitreya, and Maitreya introduces him to something called Vairocana's tower. So it's quite an elaborate text. It's a Mahayana text, and I will read a bit of it later in the evening. So I did know about that, but I didn't connect it with the figure Vairocana. I don't know why, because I loved the image that comes up in the text, but I just didn't make that connection. So it wasn't really until I went on my ordination retreat that I started to learn about Vairocana. I didn't go thinking I will take Vairocana as my sadhana. So on the retreat, we were creating a 5 Buddha mandala. We're creating a mandala to practice within sort of our own mythic realm, you might say. And none of us really knew much about Vairocana. And 3 of us volunteered to have a go, really, at creating a Vairocana shrine. So we created a shrine. And then once the mandala was complete, people started creating more shrines of various bodhisattvas, darkinis, other Buddhas that they felt they were drawn to. So the 2 people who'd been doing Vairocana's shrine with me both decided they wanted to go off. I know one wanted to do Manjushri's shrine. I can't remember. I think the other might have been Shakyamuni, because she became a Shakyamuni practitioner. But they went off to do other shrines. And I felt a bit sort of, oh, now it's just me. And someone said, well, you could just go off and do another shrine if you like, and we can all just keep an eye on Vairocana. And then I just suddenly thought, I can't leave him. So this bond somehow formed just out of me thinking I can't leave him alone on this shrine. And I spent quite a bit of time really getting to know a bit about him, mainly through exploring ways of depicting the symbols he's associated with on the shrine. And I was ordained in Tuscany at a place called Il Convento, which is sometimes used for outdoor operas in the summer. So they had a whole sort of garage full of props. So I could get lights of different kinds, from sage lights and lights as props. And I managed to find a few things representing lions. But I was a bit stumped for a wheel. And then I was wandering in the olive grove, and there were these champagne corks, because the people used to have a picnic before the opera, and obviously champagne seemed to have been a thing. So I started collecting champagne corks without really knowing what I was going to do. And then I realized that because champagne corks have got a sort of a rounded top and then they narrow, that if I put 2 end to end, they look like the spoke of a wheel. So I ended up making a wheel of champagne corks. And it's just, I think it's quite a magical space to be in when you're on a retreat, and things that you'd never think of doing occur. I wouldn't normally think of making a wheel out of champagne corks. So it felt that he just sort of evolved, and my connection with him evolved through this time. And another thing that really was a connection for me was a poem that I'd actually come across a few months before I went on the retreat. And it's a poem by T.S. Eliot called Burnt Norton, which I'd not come across before. And I just Googled the phrase, at the still point of the turning world, there the dance is. There's actually another bit in between those 2 phrases. But when I Googled it, it came up with this poem. So I'm going to read a little bit from it, because it's got quite a lot of what seem like paradoxical images within it, which remind me of things like the Heart Sutra, the wisdom text, where you've got the not this, not that, neither nor. So this is just a little bit from that poem. At the still point of the turning world, neither flesh nor fleshless, neither from nor towards. At the still point, there the dance is, but neither arrest nor movement. And do not call it fixity, where past and future are gathered, neither movement from nor towards, neither ascent nor decline, except for the point, their still point, there would be no dance, and there is only the dance. I can only say, there we have been, but I cannot say where, and I cannot say how long, for that is to place it in time. So when I came across this poem, it has a lot about time, about being in and out of time, about sound and silence, the sound of the violin after the violin stops. I think there's something like that. There's all these things that sound, a bit strange, but they all seem to me a bit like, once I got on the retreat, that was like Vairocana calling me in his own way. So I still read that poem quite a lot. It's quite a long poem, but I just find so much in it. And it's really those two things that led me to decide that I would take Vairocana as my sadhana. And then I've also got a name which has illumination in it. So my preceptor didn't expect me to take Vairocana, but when I did, she told me afterwards that it made her feel that she'd chosen the right name for me. So on the day that I was due to receive my full sadhanas, what happens is, to begin with, you get the blue sky. So a lot of you will know that often when we're imagining a Buddha or Bodhisattva figure, there's an image of blue sky. And I'm not, I think I might have said this already, I'm not someone who can visualize and get a blue sky and a set figure. So it's more, we all get a sense in our own way. I sometimes think of it as like when you're a child and someone reads you a story, you've, in your mind, you can really get an image of that story and what's happening, and it might be visual or it might not. So it's like we all have that imaginative quality, but it would be slightly different for each of us how we experience that. So anyway, I was ill on the day I was supposed to get my full sadhana. So I had 6 months where I just had the blue sky and a white lotus. And in some ways I felt cheated. I felt, all my friends had their sadhanas, and they were all talking about wonderful connections. And I still didn't know my full sadhana or what Vairocana was going to look like in this sadhana. So I think that's, it was during that time that the image I shared earlier, I'm just going to share it again. That's when it's, this became Vairocana for me, this image of the quasar. So it's, I think earlier it's from a calendar my mum gave me of pictures of the Hubble telescope, because I'm interested in space. I'm not an expert on it. And this, for 6 months, really was, this was Vairocana, this brilliant white light that's just traveling out across the whole universe with this tremendous energy. Yes, that. So I had that, but I also had this, the paradox of the blue sky, and something appears in the blue sky, and where's that come from? And then it disappears again. And what does that mean? Where is it? And yeah, blue sky isn't empty. We often tell blue sky is shunyata, and but it's not. It's void of the conditioned. It's not an empty vacuum. It's a very, very vibrant place. If you ever really look at a brilliant blue sky, it is very, very alive. There's great potential and energy and this sort of vibrancy within it. So yes, I don't tend to get a blue sky, but I can get that sense of energy, and a sense of presence in different ways, or different symbols might come to me. If something does come visually, it's normally not intended. I'm one of these people that if I'm being led through, visualizing the Buddha, I might get his knees if I'm lucky, the knees and a bit of grass or something, but I don't tend to get a full image, but we can still have a sense of the Buddha's presence in different ways. So I'm going to share another image now. Get back on my sharing. I have to reduce this first. So this is, I got 2 copies of this image of Vairocana that people gave me when I was ordained. And I really like this one because it's not very distinct. So again, it has that sense of being a being of light. There's a lot of light that's radiating from him. And he's got these auras all around his head and his body, the rainbow light. And of course, white light refracts into all the different colors of the rainbow. This other one is slightly clearer. And if I enlarge it, you might be able to see here, there is a wheel. So it's just under his hands. Traditionally, Vairocana has the wheel at his heart, and it's turning. It turns all the time, eternally. Okay, so I'll come out of that one for the moment so I can see you again. So Vairocana is brilliant white, and all the colours are refracted out of that. And as a central Buddha in the 5 Buddha mandala, in a way, he is the union of the 4 other Buddhas. So we've got these other colours, and in a way we could say that they're united back into him. So he represents the wisdom of the Buddha and all the elements that are within that. It's not that the other Buddhas in the mandala don't have, all Buddhas have the same qualities of the awakened mind, but when we separate out the Buddhas into the 4 quarters, and we've got the red, blue, green and yellow Buddhas, they're foregrounding particular qualities of the enlightened mind. And the same with the Bodhisattva figures. And it really helps us in a way to connect with and understand those qualities by having them separated out like that. And all 5 Buddhas are equally important. But in a way, Vairocana symbolizes all 4 of them, as that fully enlightened mind, all the qualities that are within that. And so in a way, his wisdom it's the essential wisdom of the spiritual life, we can say, that when someone is enlightened, all those qualities are there. Although if all of us in this Zoom were to be enlightened right now, we'd all partake of that awakened mind, but we'd all still be slightly different. So Atulyamati would still be recognizable as Atulyamati, and Georgie as Georgie. They'd have their particular qualities, but at the same time, they're all, it's the sort of the one awakened consciousness, you might say, that everybody who's enlightened is sharing. I hope I'm not making that too complicated. I'm just trying to give a sense of that. So it's not that each Buddha is, just, full of compassion or wisdom or energy or giving or imperturbability or whatever it might be, but they're accentuated in particular figures, and we warm to and connect with those figures at different times. Yeah, so this so I'm just going to recapture where I've got, as one talks, you kind of get ahead of yourself and say things, and then you have to look about, have I said this bit? So I just don't want to keep repeating myself. So there are things particularly that Shakyamuni Buddha and Vairocana share in common, and one of them is that they sit on the Vajrasana. So the Vajrasana is the diamond throne or diamond seat on which all Buddhas, when they attain enlightenment, sit. So in this sense, we're talking about those Buddhas who a Buddha discovers enlightenment, the path towards enlightenment for themselves when it has been lost. So Shakyamuni is the Buddha that did that in our time. So he went on a quest. He knew that there was an answer to suffering. He discovered that. And at the point where he sits under the Bodhi tree and attains enlightenment, he is sitting on the Vajrasana. But the Vajrasana isn't at a fixed point in time or space. If we went to India and looked under the Bodhi tree, we wouldn't find Vajrasana there. That it's because everything is impermanent. The Buddha's teaching is also impermanent within space and time. So there will come a time when nobody remembers the teachings of Shakyamuni and nobody is practicing. And at that point, the wheel will stop turning. The wheel is turning within this what's called a sasana, or the realm of Shakyamuni Buddha. But when everybody forgets, the wheel stops turning within the material world, but it will still be turning at Vairocana's heart because he's beyond space and time. And then when the next Buddha, who will be, we're told, Maitreya, appears, whenever that might be, and he becomes enlightened, he will then set the wheel turning again when he shares the Dharma with others. So the turning of the wheel sets the Dharma in motion when the Dharma is shared with others. So that's what the Buddha became enlightened, but then really that came to its fruition on Dharma Day that we're going to be celebrating next month, when he first shared the teaching with others and someone else got it and became enlightened, and pretty soon after that the other four of his old friends. So this diamond throne isn't really anywhere that we can fix, but it is said that that will appear whenever a Buddha is enlightened. They always sit on the Vajrasana. And the Buddha always turns the wheel. So the wheel of the Dharma is always there in potential. It's on the archetypal realm, it's there turning at Vairocana's heart. But within our temporal realm, it's there for as long as we practice and as long as people remember the Dharma. So Vairocana, perhaps not surprisingly, is the head of the Buddha family, the Tathagata family. So Tathagata or Tathagata, I think it might be, I'm not always the best at pronunciation, means thus gone. So it's just another simile for enlightenment. We can't really say what that experience is like as unenlightened beings. But it is quite similar in a way to the Prajna Paramita mantra that we have at the end of the puja, which is gone, gone, gone beyond. It's that same sort of thus gone. So they have gone. And he sits on a lotus. So he sits on a lotus throne, which is supported by lions. And I've often seen in the West that the lions seem to be standing with the lotus resting on their backs. But some of the more Eastern portrayals have the lions lying. So they're a bit like your cat. When your cat sits down, it's got its paws out and its head up. So it's quite alert, it's at ease, but it's also quite alert. And I think on one of the few occasions when I did get a lion appear, it was like that. I thought, oh, it's not standing up. So you never quite know what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the interesting things with symbols, is we know what they are, but we don't quite know how they're going to appear to us. So it's really lovely that we do have tankas and we've got rupas that we can look at that symbolize the qualities, express those qualities for us of the enlightened mind. So we know what those symbols are, but it's good not to get too fixed that their hands are going to be exactly like this and they will definitely be holding this or that, because they may well be, but sometimes they may not. So the lions represent a number of things, and some of these you probably are quite familiar with, like the lion's roar. So the Buddha's teaching is often likened to the lion's roar, and in the Pali Canon there are some sutras which are the lion's roar of this, or the great lion's roar of something else, because the lion is the king of the jungle and has this really loud roar that makes everything else stop and take notice. So when the Buddha is teaching, we stop and take notice in the same way. The lion is also, it is quite a powerful animal. So it has has power, but it also has a lot of poise, I think, when it is sitting or lying, or the way that it moves. So there's something about that. So Vairocana, like Shakyamuni, has lions, because he's associated with lions, and he has these lions supporting him. So in Japan, Vairocana is known as the Sun Buddha. He's very, very popular in Japan. And this brings out another of the qualities of the Buddha, because although he's got a brilliant white light, he emits golden light from all over his body. There's a golden light shining out. And the sun is something it's the brightest thing. It nurtures, it gives us warmth, it gives us life, really. It's constant, so it doesn't sort of not turn up one day. It's always there, and it shines on everyone. It shines on everyone without judgment, without preferences. So it's just there, radiating out for all, warming life. And it is the center of our universe. So just as Vairocana is at the center of the mandala, all the planets are orbiting around our sun. And if we turn our face towards the sun, I mean, you think of that, often the sun comes out and we turn our face towards it, particularly recently after all that long period of rain, go out and turn our face into the warmth. And for me, that just makes me think of turning towards the truth, turning towards the light of the Dharma, and just really allowing it to touch us. And yet at the same time, there is something that's quite ungraspable about light. Well, if you think of the sun's rays, we can turn our face to it, we can feel the warmth, and we can use the power of the sun for things, but we can't actually grasp it. You can't get hold of the sunlight in that way and hold it. So again, it's not part of our material life in the same way. So I'm going to finish by sharing just another few images of Vairocana. And I haven't talked directly about mudras, the hand gestures of Vairocana. Vairocana normally has a hand gesture of teaching, which varies quite a lot. And a couple of the pictures that I'm going to show you will show that. So they can be a bit like this, the two hands together, or it can be a bit like this, a bit more like, I don't know if you can see my ruler behind me, but he's got his two hands, they're apart. So you could almost imagine that there was a wheel between the hands. But even if you can't see a wheel depicted, then it's still there at his heart. But there are a number of ways in which this teaching mudra appears. So I'll just enlarge this one. So this is a Tibetan image. So you'll see his hands are sort of slightly side to side. So this again is a slightly different depiction of teaching, but again, it represents teaching and sharing the Dharma. And he has the richly embroidered robes of the Buddha that in different images show the robes as being slightly different. This is another Tibetan image. So there's a number of mandalas of Vairocana in Tibet. So I couldn't tell you what they all are. But there's a number which talk about the 1,000 Vairocana mandala. So there is this idea there's 1,000 Vairocanas and each of them has their attendants. So it's a bit just like having lots and lots of Vairocanas for every single realm or galaxy that there is, and in a way that connects back with the Vairocana's tower, which I'll come to later in the evening. So you can see here his hands are slightly different again, and there's quite a thing in Tibet for having red. I don't know what that symbolizes actually, but red on the palms of hands, which we've got here. So the hands are together with certain fingers touching. I'm afraid it is a bit blurry in that. But he's got more of a sense of golden light here. He's radiating light from his body. So this is just the Dharma wheel, which has the seed syllable Om at the center. So this is quite an elaborate wheel. Sometimes you have little points on the end of the spokes on the outside of the wheel. So that's what's always turning at his heart. I've got two people gave me pictures of this one, which I think is either Chinese or Japanese. And in this one, unfortunately, he's had a bit of damage, this particular image, as you can see. But this mudra is known as the Enlightenment mudra, and it's one that's quite popular in China and Japan. So in this one, his right hand is grasping the index finger of his left hand. So that represents a union of opposites and of going beyond all opposites, really. So that's known as an Enlightenment mudra. And you can see it, I think, a bit clearer in this one if I move that up. So that's the mudra. And here again, he's surrounded, he's got this amazing sort of aura that's got, it's a bit too blown here, but there's another figure on his crown. I don't know what that is, but there's also lots of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in that aura. So he's surrounded by a host of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So that's probably quite enough of me, really. I was just going to mention in the meditation that we did at the beginning, I was inviting you to share the light of the Dharma imaginatively. And with the wheel, that's another way. I mean, it's something that Basantra talks about, particularly in his book, if you've read that. That the wheel in a way is challenging us. It's challenging us to turn it. And however new we might be to Buddhism, we probably already know something that we can share with other people. And however new you are, there's going to be someone newer coming into the breakout group or through the door of the center when we get back to going into centers, whom will ask questions that you might actually know the answer to. So we all, as soon as we start taking in the Buddha's teachings, we're all in a position where we can share with others. And it's like a sort of a stream that you move along, and there are always others ahead of you who know more that you're learning from, that in turn you're sharing. So that you can see that either as that shining of the lamp, or you can see it as a turning of the wheel, turning the wheel of the Dharma, helping to keep it going throughout this eon.